Okay. So I kind of want to go over a program that I use all the time, and it's not graphic related, and it's actually audio related. And this is stuff that I do almost on maybe I'd say a daily basis. I work with Adobe Audition a lot. I record a lot of my own stuff. And the two programs I'm going to discuss is Adobe Audition 2017, CC 2017, and Adobe Audition 3.0. I'm going to start with this version first because it's the newest version. I'm kind of familiar with it, and I'm just going to explain some stuff here. So when you bring it up first, you don't really know what to do, and you can go to File and hit New, and it'll kind of give you three options here, which is cool. I like, I think new CD layout. I think that might be new. I'll have to check in the other version. So, or you could just hit one of these buttons and it'll automatically go there. And so, like, if you want to create a new multi-track session, you could check the sample rate. A lot of people work at 9600, 192,000 here. I work at regular, like I forgot what it was that I have on there, but it's good to kind of have a good high sample rate so you can always, when you scale down, it sounds better and stuff. There's a reason for that. So you can do that with the waveform as well. If you want to create a new sample rate or just a new something, you can do that too. So in audio, this would be useful if you were like want to do a I don't know, like reading a book or something. I don't know, something like that. Just some radio show or something like that. If you just want to straight talk. If I wanted to do audio capture, straight audio capture without the video, that's what I'd use here. So to record my voice. So I'm going to tell you a little about my setup right now. I have the microphones plugged into the mixer. The mixer's plugged into my PC via FireWire, and so everything that you hear is coming through my mixer, right? So and when I record my music, I actually record in stereo all my guitar stuff, and then I record in mono all my vocal stuff, and that's going to be important later on. So I'm just going to open my recent. All we got is nothing certain. This is something I'm working on right now. So this is how it looks like when you open something up in your project, when you're working on your project, right? So I'm just going to go over some very basic stuff here really quickly. So up here again, you have the waveform and multi-track. Right now you're on multi-track view, right? You're on the editor. Shortcut for that is O. Okay, and then so here's your phase analysis. Okay, you have I have a little other things that I could look at, but phase analysis is really important to me. And it's this view is important, and so is the phase wheel is important as well. Okay, I'll explain what both do later. Okay, and also there's the frequency analysis. I have it on logarithmic view because these are the kind of my most important frequencies. They're kind of just grouped better. You also have linear view. I'll just scroll up, and it's just very linear, all the way up to 48,000 K or something like that. You'll see the drop off right here. So a lot of this stays blank except for right here. So that's why I like logarithmic, because it automatically groups stuff for you. So like it knows that people can't hear above 22,000, right? So all this stuff is really irrelevant. So it doesn't capture any. You could go to advanced view and check out these things right here. Not really a big deal to me. I'm going to close that advanced view out. How do I do that? Open Pandora's box. Can't unopen it. Oh, it's right here. It's all gray. Can't see anything. All right, so you have this side. Remember frequency, phase. This is really important. Mono, right here. When you have something in mono, it goes straight up, right? It just straight up. Everything is front and center. That's what that means, okay? So imagine that you're right here and you have ears on both sides, and you're pretty much, you're asking where the sound is coming from. That's what this green ball is, okay? So at this point in time, it's coming kind of like over here. That's the majority of sound, right? A mono channel should be coming from like here. and you would see the green ball like right in front. So mono is really important because if you're recording voice in mono, that means that when you play it back, it goes across equally across each speaker. Like, so if you're in a car, mono voice will come across both on left and right equally, so you could hear it better. Okay, if you have a spliced or something that's out of sync in stereo, like a voice, it's not gonna sound as clear, and it's gonna sound a little more muddled. It's just how our ears work. And an inverse isn't necessarily bad in some cases, but inverse, anything out of inverse can be horrible when played back on FM radio, let's say, because a lot of stuff gets truncated when it's an inverse. Okay, so to continue. So here's my like files, right? I rarely go into here because I don't really care, right? I have my files here. I don't need this file list. I don't know why I even have it here. So here's, you know, everything that's in there. Sometimes I'll go in and be like, have to redo the whole, my masterpiece here, my signature, or how things are laid out because I screwed it up or something and it closed all weird. But other than that, not really. Okay, so on this side here, if you scroll in over this thing, this is your signature. This is what it looks like, this whole entire thing, right, that I'm working on. This is what it looks like in a small view, very, very tiny view. Each line represents a track, and each line represents, and beyond that, it represents each recorded track. So here's your little scroll thing. This red line represents where you are on time, right? You could scroll back out and see the whole thing. All right, so this side is your tracks, each track, right? 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. You could label them at what you want. This is probably guitar 1, right? You could label just that easy. I don't label them because I just know by waveform what they are. I don't need to freaking label them. If you're working with 100 tracks, that's probably nice if you're working with a symphony, but I'm not. Okay, my stuff is very minimal. I see a lot of people's workflows and they're like packed tight with just a whole bunch of sounds, you know, and beats and whatnot. Somebody will have a drum set, like each little thing is its own little track, you know, and that's cool when you're recording a drum set, you know, especially with my my board here. I have a Mackie and it's Firewire, so you could literally single out each channel and have any microphone that's hooked up, each channel can be you know, its own track, which is helpful, especially if you're recording live, a live I don't know, performance or like a band or something, and they're good enough to just nail it on the first or second or third try. As a whole group, you could mic them all separately, have them all sing and stuff at the same time, and you could generally see each track for each person and each instrument that they're playing. It's really cool that you could do that. But mine, I'm a studio recorder. It's just me. I do everything myself. I sing and play and, you know, all my instruments. So I just do it one track at a time. So so if you scroll in while hovering over this area, you zoom in on each track, right, individually. You could also resize each track just like that, no problem. Zoom out and you'll have them minimized, right, or a minimal appearance. If you're over here, you just scroll up and down. So that's really important. A lot of people like, wait, why am I scrolling up? Right? They get all stupid, insane, and crazy like that. I like to zoom in about here because I like to see where my incoming or my in is. You know, whether I'm going. Oh, I changed the input from ASIO to Windows 3 or something like that input. And that's because so you guys could hear when I play stuff back. So generally, when you go to this, and you'd see about 16 channels pop up. Same with stereo, you'd have about half that or something, because each channel is actually 2 channels. So anyway, so I'm gonna go with like guitar 1 here. So I'm gonna explain this. So here you have mute, right? That mutes the track. Won't ever play it. You won't hear it. It'll play it, but you won't hear it. Solos this track. Mutes everything else. Solos this track. Okay. R is arm for recording. Now I can't arm it right now because I don't have an input. So I'm just going to put an input, this one right here. Now I could arm it, right? I'm not really even sure where the microphone, where this is coming from. So you won't hear anything. this monitor input, you click that and you can monitor at large scale, and you could see how many decibels, how quiet it is or how noisy it is. This is really noisy, super noisy. Look at that. Wonder if it's on my computer or something. Nope. It's just noisy. It's a noisy channel. What's this? Oh, just no, don't worry about it. Anyways, I don't know. I think that's because I unplugged something. Okay, so mine is usually hovering right around the -80, right? And you could always change that, 120. So mine is around here. When you get like studio grade professional stuff, that the mics drop down to like here, like barely anything. They're very sensitive, right? So and they could pick up anything in this range. So that's why you have studios that have no noise, because they want the mics to stay down here so a whisper can be heard. And it's very nice to have that kind of flexibility to have that. So you don't need to do that. And I'm not going to arm anything. I'm not going to record anything. Well, also, but look at this. So if you look, the phase, the frequency analysis, sorry, not the phase, but the frequency analysis is going off. This is my frequency response to whatever's coming through this. This is white noise, so everything's just about even, right? It's just really noisy, and even though it's at -60, which is a little louder than I don't know, let's say like a bee flying around, it's still kind of loud. But even though if it was like down here, if it was at -14 decibels, you'd see this still. You'd see a phase or a frequency analysis. Sorry, phase is up here. So let's just get rid of that. All right. The downside to this is I don't like the tools as much, because well, I guess you can select individually things. I don't know if you could move them around. Oh, you can. Okay, so I like this tool now. A lot better than this one. This is just a move tool. I don't like that. Okay. So I'm just going to play this track for you. It's very minimal, and you'll see things pop up here. So right now, some things are in burst because I haven't even started doing anything yet. So the effects are kind of weird. So this is all silent, right? There's nothing showing up. So not yet. It's all there, but I don't know why it didn't show up last time. So, okay. So take a listen. As you notice, things are already here.
And all we got was nothing certain. The test would show we've much to learn. Watch through literature windows, pull the suture slow. Now pay attention closely. There she goes. Watch the ligature open. Please enjoy the show. Vanish in a crowd of people. There she goes. Goodbye, my love.
Played enough without spoiling. I still have some work to do, and I don't want to spoil the whole thing. So, if you notice on each track, there's two bars, right? This yellow one and this blue one. So, each one of them represents something else, right? So this is a pan. The blue is always a pan, it seems like. And then this other one, if I could click on it, is the volume. So this is really important. Because you could just make changes on the fly. So pan means left to right, okay? And it's different than what's on the track. This is your volume, this is your track volume, and this is your track pan. So anything on this track is going to get panned a certain way and volumed a certain way, okay? So if you're panned all the way to the right, even if you pan all the way to the left on this, it won't be centered. It'll actually just completely disappear. So you have to be really careful about working with just your track. Be comfortable with these lines, okay? Be working with these instead. That's what I do, okay? And my volume, I generally don't mess with my volume. I bring up this level to about -12, maybe -6 or so, and then I start to deal with the volumes. Now they did something different where even though this volume is at 0 dB right now, which is clipping if it was max output. Of course, I'm not clipping on any of these. I'll explain that later. I could raise the volume, which is new, up to 15. That's really great. You used to not be able to do that in 3.0. You couldn't do that. It started you off at 0 up here. So you couldn't actually raise anything. So this is really handy. That's really, really handy, especially now, where I could just raise the volume if I needed to. It needed to be louder instead of a track or going in individually and raising the wave bar. So that's really, really handy. You can do a lot here. Also, if you notice on each side, there's a little gray box and it's a fade in and a fade out. So you could grab that little box and you'll notice when you drag it, there's a little thing that comes up and that's just your fade in, right? And you see that orange or the yellow line, you control how it fades in and out. So that means that it fades in quickly, right? It still fades in, but it's a exponential quick fade in, exponential slow fade in, right? It'll fade in very, very slowly right here, and all of a sudden it'll just shoot up, right? So I usually do just an exponential quick, right around here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to cancel it out. So this area right here, I'm just going to double click it and get into my waveform view. This area is pretty quiet, right? And actually some of this stuff I like to keep because it has some sound on it that I like to keep for just timing purposes until I'm all the way done. And so you could hear it, and it's in stereo, but it's almost mono, right? Like you could see that it's always going up here. Now it is kind of leaning to the right a little bit, okay? And I could do something about that. I'll do that all later. I don't want to do it right now. So when you're in this waveform view, I have the same thing. I have the phase analysis going, and I have my frequency analysis. And I like this drop off right here. This is nice. This is this is desirable for me. Generally, the 400 to 300 hertz right here it gets really muddy. If you have this too high, you have a weird sound that I don't like, so I kind of lower this a little bit, especially with vocals and especially with acoustic guitars. 100, this is your bass right here, and when you see a bass play, you could see that this is changing all the time depending on the note, which is really cool to see. And so bass, the reason that this is higher and this is lower is because you actually have a harder time hearing bass than you do high frequencies. So my son is going crazy if you can hear him. So your high frequency, even though it's at like, let's say, right now you can't really actually see much. So let's go to like the 3000 here. It's at -50. We could still hear it pretty good, right? Let's say 1000, you could hear better at the same decibel range than you can the bass part, right? So you have to make sure that this is leveled out proportionally, and it's a logarithmic view, and there's somebody that explained it pretty well how sound works, and how is sound like, so like 0 or like, so -50 is actually like 50 times more powerful than something or some. I'll have to look that up and do another video on that, because of how sound actually works. It's not, when you're pumping up the volume, you're not just doubling it, or I don't know. I'll show you I'll show you all about it. If you're interested in the math, it's not really that important. But anyway, so just keep in mind that your bass is always going to be quieter coming out, and you need to kind of elevate that level if you want to hear it better. and your high notes, your like lead guitars, they kind of need to come down a little bit because you're going to hear them better. Your high frequencies, you're always going to hear better than your low frequencies. So when you first get into this view, you're going to see this. This is your waveform, okay? When you zoom in, you're going to see a whole bunch of waves, right? Just like that. And there's waves within waves, all right? And you're going to see, and this is all the way zoomed in here. Now, this looks straight, but if I zoom in, you'll see that it starts to change, right? It actually, I can't adjust it. It's actually like really, really curvaceous when you zoom all the way in. So notice that there's nothing here now because I zoomed way out. So I think I want to be at the 0 pointing there. Okay. So I forgot where I was. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so digital and analog audio are different. So on digital, you have a stopping point. It's a 1 or a 0, and whatever your sample rate is, I think this one's 48,000, sorry, 48,000 sample rate. That's like, imagine that you're recording video, and even though you're recording live action, and you're playing it back at the same speed. So if you're recording something like football or something, you play it back and it's the same speed that on screen. But let's say you're like, well, you know what, I want to capture more information. So with a video, like you want to record football at 1,000 frames a second, right? Oh, that's a high number. But when you play it back, it's still the same speed, which I'm not sure anything plays anything that fast. Maybe something does. But anyways, so what that really is in that second, there's 1,000 frames of information that's going on, right? Generally, when you record something at 1,000 frames, you're doing it for slow motion because you're playing it back at like 30 frames or 24 frames, depending on if you're cinematic or not. But so if you record at like 92,000 kilobits or something, however it is, audio file. So here it is at 48 hertz, right? Sample rate. There's 192,000. So that's just like how many frames or how much information in 1 second it's getting, right? And that's and it also has to do with bit depth as well. So there's this, and you know what? I might be a little wrong on this. I think this is actually what the frequency capture is, and this is how much you're actually capturing. But anyways, I actually just record at like 48 because honestly, nothing is going to get captured past that point. I think CDs are like 16 or 8 or something like that when you burn CDs. So that's a whole process I can explain later. Okay, so there's an effect I could throw on this right now to fix this correct phase, I guess, but I'm not gonna. What am I missing? Ooh, I know what I'm missing. I'm missing a MIDI track. So Adobe, after like CC 2014, or after, I don't know, maybe after 3.0 actually, they got rid of the whole entire MIDI suite thing. Like just no more MIDI, can't add any more MIDI sounds or anything like that. And it was really helpful. MIDI was awesome, and I'll show you this. So here is 3.0, complete day and night, right? Looks really old for some reason, but it still works. I mean, it still records just the same. You could still do everything just the same. I think it has better session properties actually, but it allows you to get MIDI tracks, right? So I have a timpani here and a tom and a cello and violins and snare, and actually, you know what? I don't think these work anymore because I don't have the thing that's attached to it. So I don't have the VST anymore. So I'll load up something else that definitely does. Ooh. Let's see here. Pretty sure the quick slice does. Let's see. MIDI track A, yeah. Go to the sequencer. Okay. So here's my drum track for the quick slice. All right, I'm just going to play this for you. I think that's the start. Yeah. So, you can probably still hear the song. Pause it here. I have a lot of tracks on this one, but it's not crammed too tight. I just have a lot of tracks. So I split some effects, effect 2. What I do is just copy or bounce my vocals to a new track, and I'll either do a stereo output or something, or another mono output. But I like to copy my files and work off the effects on that instead, right? So when you record something, so you'll have this recording, and you could totally adjust the trim on it, right? Like, oh, I recorded stuff, but I screwed up a lot, so I like what I had here, so I'm just gonna do that, right? And continue recording, or something like that, which is great. Actually, I'm just gonna do everything I just did. I'm thinking, okay. You can also like cross fade into another track, which I use regularly. And this MIDI track was actually muted because I exported the drums to a WAV file, which is awesome. But you could do that here. You could bounce to export to file, or just bounce MIDI track to a stereo file, which is amazing, right? You can mix it down. It's amazing to have this ability. Used to not be able to do that. So it just records it. Like this is it. This is my drum track right here, the whole thing. And you could see, when you get into this waveform, you could see, again, you could see the phase analysis. And this is onion skinning. So it's just a little bit beforehand. You see everything before that came before, right? And then you could see, let's see, I might be able to, let's get the phase wheel. See how everything's all over the place on the phase wheel? So the reason for that is because of the symbols. Like the symbols just make the phase wheel go crazy, and it's everywhere. It goes into the negatives all the time, which is not a bad thing. Totally not a bad thing. It's fine. And you could see on my frequency analysis, it's kind of crazy, but this is the not the logarithmic view. This is straight view, right? So let me see if I have a different view. Oh yeah, so unclick the linear view. There's my logarithmic view, and you can see where the basses are, hitting, and then this is just my hi-hat cymbal stuff. And I kind of like this a little bit better because you could see just different things going on, which is neat. And this is, I think, this is just what came before it, right? So linear view, yeah. Again, sample size, all different. The lower it is, the crazier things get, right? The higher it is. So that means it's taking a sample of this much data and making an average out of it, right? So at 128 is just all over the place all the time, right? Just going crazy. So I just like this 512 or 1024 sample size, I think is enough. So from here you can do a lot, you know. Here's where you can, I double click to select everything and it makes an average of everything apparently. And here's my effect rack, and this is where I just apply things. So if you want, if you like, maybe the drum track is a little too, I don't know, too loud. I want to throw in a multi-band compressor on it. Maybe the cymbals are too loud, and just do a classic master on it. You could preview it, and you'll see the drum start playing here in a second. Right, so that's cool. You could see all the where the bass hits, where the bass is hitting right here. Boom, boom, boom. Right, and then you see the cymbals. You could hear the cymbals really, really well, right? But look how high the bass has to go for you to hear it really, really well, for you to feel it. Right, so each band, right, represents a color. You can move these around. You could adjust the level, so you can get rid of the bass completely, you know. You can get rid of the cymbals completely, just like that. You can up the snare, all you hear is a snare, you know, for the most part, you know, which is not a good idea, kind of lame. You can quiet the whole thing down if it's too loud. But I like how my stuff is. I've already mastered this song and now put it in and stuff like that. So you have another view. This is a good one. This is the spectral frequency view. Anything that's black is empty space. There's nothing here. There's absolutely, there's nothing recorded, right? This is what I like about the drums when you export it. It's like, it's so clean. There's no noise, no nothing, right? So when you get in here, you start seeing a whole bunch of other things. So red means it's hot. It's really, really, really hot. It means it's loud. This part of the whole entire frequency is louder than this part, right? So light blue and purple is kind of cold. It's not as hot. It's not as loud, right? So you come up all the way up here, and you can see that it goes up past 21,000. I think 22 is the cutoff, and so you can see this is pretty even. This is pretty nice. This is a good mix, right? It's not bad. You could adjust all this. You could increase, decrease, whatever. It's got and it has a signature, or not a signature, but it has a capture for every frequency. So you could just about do anything you want here, which is really, really nice. And then this next view is spectral pan display, right? It'll show you which side, like where you're at, right? So I think blue is your bass, and the reds are your high frequencies, and it looks like that's about right. Your high should be outside, and the blue should be inside. It's a little off center. It looks like the DC bias is a little off. I don't know. It looks fine on here, so I don't know. Maybe it's all balanced out somehow. There's a green over here, which I think that's the snare drum. And then you have your this is your spectral phase display. So anything above 100. So if you're doing FM, if you want to eventually do something with FM radio, anything above this point right here, this all gets cut off, right? And that's the safe space and stuff. Actually, I don't really know why. I think it's just a safe space, or I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. But anything above that gets cut off, right? When you process for the radio, when the radio broadcasts it. So anything inside here is good. So when you go when you go above 100, really, this is kind of a safe zone. When you go above 100, you kind of get an inverted. Okay, so this is inverted material, and this is probably from the cymbals, most likely. It looks like it is. And when you get inverted, it's not a bad thing. It really isn't. But it is if you're going over the radio. If you're gonna play anything over the radio, if you have important material on the inverse side over here, then it'll get cut off and you will not hear it at all. So it's important to keep all your stuff on, especially vocals. Never invert your vocals. Keep your vocals up front, okay? Unless you want to relay some secret hidden messages that you can only hear, I don't know, listening on the MP3 or something, whatever. But otherwise, keep everything not inverted. So inverted, so I'm going to show you what inversion is. So I'm going to select just this one side, and I'm going to edit, and where is it? I think I should do it from here. No, I can't. Effects, and you go to invert. Boom. It'll just flip it upside down. So everything now is inverted. It sounds, you could still hear it, but if you notice the bass is really, it's gone. Like the bass is gone. Because bass is your mono channel, and it's inverted right now. If you look on the pan display, it's right up here. You see these white, that's where it's most of it. So when you have this drum inverted, you're not going to hear any bass when you're on FM radio at all. Right? Everything's still the same here. Everything's still the same here, but your stage is way off, right? So you don't want to invert anything. And then so another thing that happens that can happen, so I'm just going to undo that because I don't like that. Another thing that can happen is complete cancellation. So if you have, so both of these tracks are not identical, right? There's still things going on. So if I clicked on this and hit the copy button, and then clicked on this and hit the paste, right? Oh, and it actually pasted into, I don't want to do that. I just want to delete and paste, right? Now everything is mono right here because I just basically copied everything. Right, it's just going through mono. And if you look at the phase analysis, it's just going to be this tiny line, right? The pan display, ain't gonna be nothing there, right? Everything's the same here, right? And so if you select it, you have to be like down here to select it, and you invert that, nothing comes through. This is called cancellation. Even though it's playing, this sound is canceling this sound, and I'll show you how that works. Right, so whatever's coming through right here, this one is equal and opposite force, right? It just cancels it out. So it's all silence, right? That's how noise canceling speakers work. They have a microphone that pick up the frequency, and then they output the same frequency, right? And that's why it needs a battery, because it needs to output at the same decibel level, right? So never do this. So never ever invert your stuff, because you will not be able to hear it over the speakers, even though it's coming through, right? Even though it is technically coming through, it's just cancels out. There's nothing coming through, right? So never do that. This is complete full inverse. This is why inverse is bad, because also if you have this, you won't have anything, right? Now there are some techniques where you could do noise cancellation like this, where if you have a hissing or something, an inverse is good because it'll completely cancel out the hissing, and that's a good thing too. But that's an episode for a different day. All right, so I think I'm done for today. I've gone on for long enough, 40 minutes. Okay, so if you have any questions, leave a comment. And look forward to the new or more episodes coming up, and it'll get more in depth on how to record stuff. Okay, peace out.